Hey, Chicago, what do you say? This is the CHGO Cubs Pregame Show presented by PointsBet. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. I'm Luke Stuckmeyer, joined by Cody Delmendo and Ryan Herrera as always. And we're getting ready for the Cubs and Padres, the late-night game on the West Coast, where the Cubs hopefully will not lose their 6th straight game. Guys, we'll get to all the other stuff, but
we're just going to jump right into that, Luke.
Yeah, we'll get to there's some good news on the injury front, all those things as we get the pregame show going, but they are struggling. That's all I can say. Like, what is it? Like 14-17, something like that.
3-14, their last
17. 3 and 14.
Yeah.
I mean,
scored 22 runs since
the 21-0 game.
Yeah, 21-0 game against the Pirates, which is like 16 games or something
it's gone off the cliff so quickly from to the point when they were 6-4 and we were like, oh, look at the offense, look at all these positive things, to now it's just the Reds saving them from being like the worst team in baseball. Cody, I'll let you go first. How tough was this weekend? Because I know you went to at least 2 of those games.
Yeah, so I went to the doubleheader, both doubleheader games on Saturday, and look, Ryan, I know that I sat on this podcast and I was like, this team could fuck around and win 87 games. I know that that's outlandish and whatever, but I'm an optimistic person, and for love of God, I've seen so many random-ass teams throughout my life find a way with a bunch of random dudes to somehow make playoffs. All right?
But that's okay. That's why we love your fandom. Like, that's and so, we're all a little bit guilty of it. Right. I optimistically said 500. Yeah. Guys, 500 isn't happening.
I think, what was that? What mine was 77 and 85. Yeah, even that still feels kind of
too optimistic.
Generous. But yeah, Cody, you bring that optimistic side, which kind of you need on this podcast.
Right. Wait till next year. That's
I bought a 14-game pass this season. I've went to 3 games so far.
Nice.
0-3. I'm gonna start keeping it because I'm starting to think it might be an 0 for 14 this year. I might not get to hear "Go Cubs Go." It's a possibility.
Wow. Well, this series is not going to be easy. They get the Padres. They just had the Dodgers, and we saw clearly the difference between the Dodgers and the Cubs.
Yeah.
The Cubs scored 3 runs. Forget the pitching part. They scored 3 runs.
What's the annoying about the Cubs in this series against the Dodgers is that in 2 of the 3 games, they scored first. They actually led in these games with the Dodgers. The Dodgers, a team that should probably win 100 games this year, there were points they led, and their own inept ability to, whether it's fielding the baseball cleanly, whether it's just generating any sort of offense, whether it's just not being an absolute embarrassment like they were in that last game between the 6th to the 9th inning, somewhere in there. Nice. I get we're not supposed to have expectations, but we should all be pissed off. Maybe not Ryan, because he's the objective person here. But we should be pissed off. Jed Hoyer, he straight up said to our faces. Tom Ricketts went on marquee and straight up said to our faces that this team is going to compete this year. Said it to our faces, Luke.
Well, now wait a minute.
Cody's not happy.
I believe the phrasing was, we're going to be competitive.
Yeah, competitive. They're not even competitive with the way that they're playing.
Cody, competitive is a real loose term that can go all kinds of different directions. Competitive doesn't mean we're going to win the division. Competitive doesn't have to mean we're going to be second in the division. Competitive could just mean we're going to be in some games against some of the other average teams.
It could mean that you don't get blown out, 100-something times.
All I'm saying is
that's all it could mean.
If they lose 100 games, they're not competitive.
That's
right. What I'm saying is that they straight up told season ticket holders, and these are the people that I feel bad for the most, because those people paid for the most expensive ticket in baseball to watch this baseball team. And that's bullshit, man. Am I, in the grand scheme of things, super upset about having to pay for a ticket to go to the Cubs? No, because I can go on StubHub and get one for $6 to sit in the bleachers against the Dodgers. When was the last time you could do that at Wrigley Field?
Feels like it's 1940.
I genuinely feel bad.
Like 5 cents.
I genuinely do
more
feel
than that.
bad for season ticket holders right now because this Cubs team, like, I'm not mad at the players. I'm mad at the front office right now because this team is not playing like anything that they said.
I feel bad for the players.
Yeah, because they're just going out there trying to put together a career, right? For sure, some of them need to play better. I'm not taking everything away from them, but like the front office, ownership, whatever, they told us that they're going to be a competitive team, and the majority of fans, in my eyes, when you say that, says that they're going to be in games, they're going to win some games. They're 3-14 in their last 17, and these are against good teams, but still, like, they got to be better than that. They got to be better than that.
I think we all knew that this last 11-game stretch was going to be
Tough.
Very tough.
We knew it would be tough. It was
Right.
four teams that could win the World Series.
Yeah, 2-9 in that stretch is not like a shock. Honestly, I would have been shocked if they went
But
4
expanded out.
wins, right?
Expanded out, it's bad.
Yeah, and I think, it looks really bad, but if the Cubs don't drop 3 or 4 to the Pirates, the series right before that stretch starts, I think there's a little bit of forgiveness or they buy a little bit of credit. So, like, okay, they beat the team that they're supposed to, a team that's supposed to be tanking,
right?
And they beat them 3 out of 4 games. If they won that series, okay, cool. Now you go into the stretch against teams that all could very easily win their divisions, and if they lose, they go 2-9, they did, but you at least beat the Pirates like you're supposed to. Cubs didn't do that, and that's why I think if this last stretch looks even worse. Obviously, it doesn't get any easier with 3 games in San Diego, and they go to the Diamondback, go to Arizona, face the Diamondbacks, who have been, they're I think 15-14. Like, they're a little bit of surprise as far as they're the ones that are competitive, while the Cubs sit at 9-18. But yeah, it's just this last 11-game stretch has really showcased how far away the Cubs are, especially when you look at the Dodgers and like just the parallels of like 2016. They were the last 2 teams standing in the NLCS. 6 years later, the Cubs are, the Cubs aren't going to say it, but they're in another rebuild, while the Dodgers have done nothing but make the playoffs again and won a World Series in 2020. And I think it's 3 NLCS appearances in the last 6 years, 2 or 3 World Series. Like, just the Cubs could be the Dodgers. Like, they have the market size, they have the capital, people sell out the games when they're good, obviously. So they could be what the Dodgers have been the last. You want to go back a decade, but it just hasn't happened. And so I think that Dodgers series really just, you look at that and you're like, okay, like this is really
They're
bad.
a long way away.
Yeah, a long way away.
But I was saying to Cody before the podcast, the difference with the Dodgers right now, like, don't get me wrong, they're spending money. They're going out and getting guys to fill holes on their team. They're paying money to get big-time players. But the Cubs core from 2016, Clayton Kershaw didn't come out of that group. They never, Lester was old. Lackey was old. Hendricks has been good, but he's not Clayton Kershaw.
No.
Let's not confuse him for that. Freddie Freeman's been added to fill holes. They found Justin Turner. They've added Trey Turner. They let Seager go. They got Trey Turner. Like, they're adding pieces, but some of the stars, they didn't develop. Buehler. Mm-hmm. The Cubs haven't developed their Buehler yet. Like,
right.
The Dodgers have physically done some things other than just
what the
spending
Cubs
money.
did at the beginning was they were on. You can't do that forever. It's just not sustainable. What the Dodgers are doing both. They're
That's what it's like. And the Dodgers
you
said sustainable. The Dodgers have clearly sustained it. Like, they're going out and buying guys like Mookie. They gave Mookie Betts a
right,
and they supplement
extension.
It with young players that they're developing in their own
but none of their core failed as badly as the Cubs failed together as a group.
Ding, ding,
yeah,
ding.
well, but that's what I'm saying is
that's the truth.
And that's if the core just the Cubs core just didn't work out, and that's fine. But you see the Dodgers, they go out and pay. They paid Mookie Betts like $250 million or whatever it was in 2020. Like, it was. Who knew what was going to happen in 2020? But they gave him a huge contract extension. They went out and signed Freddie Freeman this year, but they also are supplementing that with. They're bringing up their own guys that are solid major league players, Gavin Lux, those kind of guys. They have I looked at it yesterday on like MLB Pipeline, their top 100 list. The Dodgers have 6 top 100 prospects. The Cubs have 2. Like, so they're just up and down the organization, just sustaining that success that they've had in the last, if they don't make the playoffs for the 10th year in a row
Ryan,
this year, something tragic happened.
Can you
the Cubs
imagine,
could be that.
Can you imagine where the Cubs would be if they had picked up Trevor Bauer? Like,
Yeah.
you talk about the Hayward contract being an albatross, but like the Dodgers have fought through moves that haven't worked. And it feels like while Hayward isn't the worst contract in baseball, it has handicapped them for 3 seasons now, at least.
When it
right?
doesn't have to. It doesn't have to.
No, it doesn't
It
have
doesn't
to. Other
have to.
teams have just paid the money and walked away
Is it
from
like
it.
$50 million under the cap still right now? Like they still have the opportunity. And you talk about you don't spend all the money when you're rebuilding, so that when you get to the good years, then you can spend all that
Right.
money. But the Cubs didn't do that in like 2018, 20. I mean, really, when Bryce, they could have. I don't know. I don't know.
Started.
I don't know the front office, like especially the inner workings and really how much money there was, but it all kind of started with that Bryce Harper thing, and them not going out and getting him.
People thought Bryce Harper was a real deal.
Yeah, and like that's the year that they could have gone, but they a lot of it we spent money on Castellanos, we spent money on Cole Hamels, blah blah blah, and then that seemed to handicap them. When you look at the Dodgers and stuff like that, doesn't like bad contracts don't handicap that team. So
it sucks. It sucks. But do you feel that do you guys feel that this is what we signed up, not necessarily what we signed up for, but what we knew we were going in this direction? And I'm wondering now, yeah. And in just the short term, but I'm wondering now that we have it, like we talked about this for weeks and weeks before the season started, when we were in the lockout, whatever, every day on the show. And we initially, somewhat accepted that this is the path that the Cubs are going to go. Like, now that it's happening and they suck, and this is the least competitive they've been in May in 8 years, like, how do you feel about it? Because there is a level of,
I'm pissed off. Right. I'm pissed off because this, not only am I pissed off at the front office for feeding us the bullshit, but I'm also pissed off in a way at the players too, because they are better than this, in my opinion. They are better than this if they're healthy and if they actually play like most of them historically have performed in the past. At least guys like Contreras, and I know Contreras is having a good season, but like to me they are a better baseball team. This is like the bottom of what we will probably see this year, and who knows what the roster will look like at the end of July. I know that, but like even if this isn't the bottom, then these players aren't going to have any value at all, and then the trade deadline is going to be a waste of time. Like, straight up, that's how I feel.
Well, there's plenty of guys that weren't going to have value at the trade deadline regardless.
I saw a tweet that said
true.
we're
We have
pretty
a few
close.
guys that will, like
Here's
David
the
Robertson.
deal.
And
Wait,
stuff.
hold on one second, Joey. Here's the deal we talked about on like the season preview podcast we did. We said, what does this team have? And it has an overload of what ifs. And so we took it as an optimistic and said, well, if the what ifs hit, if Schwindel comes back, if Wisdom or one of them comes back and has a great season, if Hermosillo can prove it, or if Rivas can prove it, if Ortega can prove it, if Happ can prove it, if Horner can prove it, if we went around the team, and the only person on the team as a position player that you could pencil in and say, this guy is 100% going to be better than average at his position, is Contreras.
Yeah.
They had one position player that wasn't a what if. The problem is that so far, through the handful of games that they've played now, and we're starting to get a better sample size, a lot of the what if guys are proving that they aren't possibly full-time good major league players. Now, Happ has proven something, right? Horner has proven something to you. So you had, and Suzuki has proven
we're on
something,
hold for now,
but he was a what if. They were all what if. All three were what ifs. So those 3 what ifs have shown you something. That's a positive to build on. But pretty much every other what if as a position player has been, well, Madrigal hasn't worked out so far. Ortega hasn't worked out so far. Schwindel certainly hasn't worked out so far. And just to move it forward to today, like he's back from AAA already. I don't understand. I would love to know what questions were asked in pregame. I was shocked when he was sent down, and then the first thing I thought of was, well, good on them, because you know what? It's not against Frank Schwindel. He's got to go work on it. Rivas deserves a shot to do it just as much as Schwindel does. So give him 2 weeks of starting every game. And now Frank is back in the lineup, in the heart of the lineup today.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like he's
And
not,
what you
he's
said
not been
though,
good.
like Hermosillo, Schwindel. Listen to these names: Schwindel,
Right.
Wisdom. Like these what ifs. How are we even surprised that these aren't hitting? You know, like
Little
it
bit's
was.
on
We
us.
were pretty. Our hopes may have been a little bit delusional to think that all of
the
these.
thing is with this roster, I feel like the start of this season would have been better if Miley, if Alzolay were healthy. Because a big part of why they've lost games is because they're not getting length out of their starting rotation. Yes, the offense has been abysmal, awful, since like they went to Atlanta, for sure. But you get more length out of that starting rotation, you're not ruining your bullpen so much. I think there's a few more wins in there if they have a healthy if they come to the season healthy with Alzolay and Miley. And instead of 9-18, maybe we're 12-16. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like
Jack
that,
agrees
and
with you on
that's
the
like
chat.
Producer,
that,
I
that's
agree.
like okay, like I can live with that type record, right? Like
Yeah.
but like that's the biggest thing. We've been talking about the offense, but they're not getting consistent starting pitching. I think Brennan tweeted it last night. The Cubs have a 0.1 WAR from their starting rotation. Like that's not great, Bob. That's bad. That's awful.
Well, I want to say Jack earlier said, Castellanos and Hamels were great moves. I'm not saying they weren't, because they were obviously really good with the Cubs. It was just when it didn't work out, and they could have re-signed him, or Castellanos' case could have re-signed him and didn't, because the Cubs let the money dictate that. It's like, oh, we don't have the money to shell out for Nick Castellanos, and then obviously that was the excuse, but that was in the window where they should have.
I have another question.
By the way, I don't think Miley's going to save the team, but he does start tomorrow's game, so we will see Wade Miley for the first time.
And before we get to that, because we're still on this bigger picture thing, I'm curious how Cody's response may differ from you guys, Ryan and Luke. And I saw a tweet we're there, 9-18, not competitive, haven't won a series since the Brewers' opening series. And they're getting close to the point where it makes sense that you say anyone that's producing on this team, if you're getting calls at the trade deadline or before the trade deadline, you got to entertain these offers. And where do you guys stand on that? We had all these conversations about Contreras. He leads all catchers in OPS. He's having a good year. And this Cubs team is years away. That much is clear. They are years away, and I get that he's a big piece of the core, but you can get a real haul for him, and I'm just curious what you guys think.
I mean, do I still think that Contreras should, the Cubs should pay Contreras? I said at the beginning of the season, I still think so. He's not he's was a 30 right now. He's
a
getting
top
there.
5 catcher.
But yeah, you don't get the kind of defensive and offensive catcher. That combination doesn't happen very often, so you like having that guy on the team. But do I think when it comes to July, the end of July or beginning of August, whenever the trade deadline is, and they get a nice offer for Wilson Contreras and they haven't come to a contract extension or anything like that, he's probably, there's probably a very real chance that he's gone. There's probably a very real chance that he's gone.
Forget it. He's gone.
And so, it's...
And I don't disagree. I think he's gone too, but I don't think that's necessarily the wrong move. If you can get
my thinking
big piece.
is, you said years away. I don't think they're years away. You don't sign Marcus
I agree,
Stroman.
actually.
You don't sign Seiya Suzuki for a 3 or 4 year rebuild and hoping Christian Hernandez comes up in 2025 to save the world. You don't do that.
I'm also optimistic about the young guys in the system. I just think you have the 7th draft pick this year. You're going to end up picking top 10 again. I think that I don't think that next season they're going to go all in and start spending a ton of money. But they'll start building. But right. I don't know.
I don't think it's the bad baseball move to trade Contreras, but it's also not easy to find catchers, man. Unless you're trading Contreras to San Diego and bringing Capusano back, if they trade Contreras, I want someone who is going to be on the team next year, and you can say this guy should project to help this team win. The fans deserve it. They absolutely deserve it. We're paying the most money for tickets in this city. We should not have to sit through a 3-year rebuild. That's the only way that I would probably get on a Contreras trade is if you get guys, specifically a catcher, if you get guys who could come in and
blue chip
help
prospect
you win
now.
right away,
Now.
like next year,
you don't-
2023.
Why would a team trade that guy? If they have a catcher that's ready to come in and be a really good major league catcher, why would they trade him for Contreras?
I don't know if you're necessarily going to get a catcher back in the deal, but I do
I'm
think
just
you
saying
can
in,
get
like,
but I think you can
example.
get a blue chip prospect, especially for like look at the Yankees the last couple of years and how much they could have used a guy like Contreras just to be a defensive guy behind the plate, and then you add in that he's one of the best offensive catchers in the league. But we saw like they couldn't even play Gary Sanchez because he was so bad, and that's a really important position. And not to mention Contreras has years of postseason experience calling games. Like I think that he will command a really big market. You know, like think about the Real Muto trade, a couple years ago. Like I don't.
Hold out for the right deal. What did the Sox get for
Sale?
the outfielder?
Who?
Not Adam Engel, the other guy.
Adam Eaton. They got a haul. They got
and
Giolito.
Ronaldo Lopez.
It's all about the
Okay.
right time. If
So
you're going to
it's
get somebody
that's what I'm
that's going
saying.
to pay,
Like, he's certainly a better player than Adam Eaton. You know, so and at a position that's more prime. So, by the way, Contreras leading off tonight and playing DH. Yan Gomes batting cleanup and catching. Now, real quickly to that point, that points it out everything you need to know right now. Wisdom, Gomes, Schwindel, 3, 4, 5. There is not this is not anything against those guys. None are playing well necessarily, and that is the heart of your order. That is not striking fear in anybody at this point. Anybody in the majors right now. So I get what Joey's saying. I personally believe that keeping Contreras is still the right move, but
It's also like
I do believe that everybody on the roster should be at least considered. You can't check somebody off as being like, nope, can't trade that guy, and that includes Stroman, Hendricks, Contreras, Robertson, all those guys. Like you can't rule out any of those guys that are not necessarily 100% part of that window. That's why I jokingly brought up the Stroman thing to the Sox guys during the crosstown. Like, you know, I half-heartedly said it. I was joking mostly because I don't think they're going to do it. But if it goes totally sideways, you don't owe anything to Marcus Stroman to keep him here if you can get somebody's top 2 prospects. Like, if he pitches well and you don't think, and you're looking at it going, you know what, we're going to have way too many holes to fill. We can get a couple guys that'll help us next year. But I don't want guys that are 4 years away still,
right,
like you said. So, I don't know. We're going to have plenty of time to talk about this on the post-game show because we're going to be up
I'm
until
sorry
like 2
that
a.m.
I yelled a ton for everyone listening. I'm just like, I've had this built up anger in my soul for the last 24 hours. And it's just, to me, again, and I point out season ticket holders paid all this money. We were told we were what we were told. And I feel bad for them. They paid a ton of money to watch this team. And that's why I'm saying that this is the bottom of what we'll see from this roster. It has to be better. And that doesn't mean like turn around and somehow fuck around and win 87 games. That just means just be better. Like, don't look like an embarrassment on the diamond. That's all I'm asking. Like, actually be in games. That's all I'm asking.
I got the silver lining for you.
Competitive is what you're saying.
2 words, silver lining, points bet.
Yeah, we're taking no run first inning tonight, Luke.
Nice.
Kyle
No run
Hendricks
first
versus MacKenzie
inning.
Gore.
It's at -150. I'm placing it on Petco.
Good way to support us for sure.
Right. Best way to support CHGO is to download the PointsBet app and use code CHGO when you sign up. If you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content. You'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. If you have any questions, email pointsbet@allchgo.com, and we'll help you. Remember that PointsBet is your home for live in-game betting. They even have a new exclusive feature, live NBA same-game parlay. For the first time ever, build the perfect live same-game parlay only with PointsBet. Combine your favorite bets anytime during the game. You can even boost your live same-game parlays And now online sign-up is available in Illinois. You can actually download the PointsBet app right now and register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. Signing up with the fastest sportsbook is now easier than ever, so you can start living your bet life in seconds. Use code CHGO to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. So what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
By the way, Cubs are not hot. Is it ungodly hot in this studio right now?
It is warm in here tonight.
It's getting up there.
We have to turn the
It's
AC
either
off,
my anger,
because
Good
it's really
thing
hot,
Ryan's got the
or it's hot
Hawaiian
in this
shirt on. I
Ryan,
feel
man.
like I'm in
Yeah,
Maui right
should've
now.
worn a
Beautiful
Hawaiian
weather.
shirt.
I was
Got
going to
calls for
say, I
Hawaiian.
think during the post game, we may have to cut out 5 minutes, talk about the guys at Myrtle Beach, just to give Cody and all the Cubs fans listening a little bit of hope. Because
just Myrtle Beach,
just,
Iowa.
Not just Myrtle Beach, you're right. But I do think it's worth mentioning, like, there are a lot of things to be excited about in the Cubs system, in the organization.
I agree.
Just not for this season.
That's why
as
I'm
much as
saying,
we thought.
like,
Just not at the MLB
that's
level.
just the
The
reality at the
system is
moment.
loaded right now. That's why I'm saying that that's like the main point of why I wouldn't trade Contreras, because he would be great to be like that leader of that next great team. And
Agree.
we should see Caleb Killian within the next 2 months. We should see Brennan Davis by the end of the year. Like, part of the reason I thought 87 wins was, honestly, I really thought Brennan Davis was just going to tear it up in Iowa. We'd see him in like June. Like, if he was unfortunately, he's off to a cold start. But if he was tearing it up in Iowa right now and we're watching this offense, you can't tell me that the Cubs wouldn't feel pressure from the fan base and everyone, especially with everything going on with, like, PR wise with them over the last few years, that they wouldn't feel the pressure to call up Davis. Not to say that I would do it or not do it, but if the offense was bad and he was tearing it up in Iowa and 100 at bats at this point, then yeah, I would be like, we need that guy right now.
Niren saying you got to give these guys 100 at bats before you evaluate. I will say this:
definitely still early.
We have done it multiple times, and every fan does it. The small sample size thing can blow things out of proportion one way or another.
For
I
sure.
don't see all of those guys turning around, which is why I think the sample size is maybe enough for me to say the team isn't going to be that great, but that doesn't lead me to believe that some of the individual players still couldn't have very good seasons. Like, say I had a blistering spot and we were talking like league MVP. Okay, let's...
I wasn't.
yeah,
I was rookie of the year, but
it got mentioned, and I did rookie there too.
He did have
Let's
great-
scale it back and let's get him used to the Major League Baseball like we originally
I
thought.
think it's worth mentioning, like, those outcomes, even in a 50-win season, if Seiya was the MVP, that's a win. Like, though,
Right,
you know,
we've
if
had
you
that
get those
conversation. How many of
individual,
those do you need
right? It's
for
just
it
a
to be a good
different way
season?
of measuring success this year than it has been in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and spin zone this a little bit, but like we mentioned, this is the last 11 games was a roughest stretch. Then you got 3 more against San Diego. You got 3 in Arizona. Things, at least the competition level will get easier for the Cubs. Do they, start playing better? You got to hope so, because these 2-9 the last 11 games, like, it wasn't a very good showing at all. So you hope that when the Reds, they're playing the Reds, or the Diamondbacks go to Wrigley, that there's a more competitive games, more wins in there. And then, it's barely a month into the season. They just had probably the toughest stretch on their schedule for the season.
Gotta be.
I was not expecting them to come out of this stretch and like be at 500 or even better than that. Like I think 9-18. That's tough to look at, but I didn't think they would have like another 5 or 6 wins in there. So I think you can be like Cody is, understandably just angry or disappointed in what you've seen over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But you also take into account that they're playing a lot of championship caliber teams and things. Give them a little more time. Like you said, 100
You said the
at-bats.
Pirates series was a bigger thing, and I
Right.
agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm angry because I just feel like Cubs fans deserve better, man. Like, that's just how I'm wired. We have put up with so much bullshit since the 2018 season ended, and we just deserve better. Like, there's no other way to cut it. And again, I can say that while also knowing that expectations were low this year. I understood that this is probably an 80-win team at best, and if like a few guys really shocked the world. And I was okay with that, but they should not be a bottom 5 team hanging out with the Pirates and the Reds this year.
I do think when that quote unquote next great Cubs team does come along, there's no reason they should have to strip things down again. Again, we'll keep going back to the Dodgers, big market team. They are successful every year, and they keep figuring out a way to, even if it's a retool, which they haven't really had to do that, but they have the talent in the minor leagues, or they'll go out and get someone, and that'll kind of change things around, switch things up, but they're still going to be good. That's what the Cubs need to do too. They can't. There should not be a reason for the Cubs to have to strip things down, trade away everyone that has value, and not bottom out, but not be in the running for a playoff spot any year. That should be the expectation for the Cubs, just based on who they are. They have the money, they have the market size. They should be competitive every year, making a run at the playoffs every year.
We're going to have plenty of podcasts to talk about it, I think, this season. And another factor will be, we can talk about this for a whole podcast, the renovation of Wrigley Field, how expensive it got, all of that factors into some of this just a little bit. But real quick, who you got tonight? Let's make it a positive. Who you got for the Cubs tonight? Who are you taking? I think we each have one win on the season.
Something like that.
We each have one win. We have some games where we didn't make picks, and then we have games where nobody won.
So I'm taking Nico. He's been one of the few offensive players who, actually just all-around players. He's been playing very well defensively, minus that error he had at the end of the game last night. But he's also been hitting the ball. Even on his outs, he's been just mashing the ball into people's gloves if it's an out. So, yeah, and he's in that 6-hole again tonight. So, he's a guy you look at right now, the way he's playing, that guy's part of the next great Cubs team in my eyes. That's how good he's playing. Yep. So that if I'm going to end this pregame show of all the yelling I've been doing, that's your positive from me.
There you go.
I like Wilson leading off. That's my pick.
Yeah. The Cubs have always played around with
lead off.
Non-traditional leadoff hitters going up.
Yeah. Outside of Dexter, forever.
Yeah. I do like Wilson. He's been, I think, over the last week or so, 5 games or something, he's hitting near 300. He's definitely been good at the plate. Him and Nico are probably the two best. I think easily the two best at the plate the last week or so. Mm-hmm. So I do like Wilson, but I picked Happ. MacKenzie Gore does have good numbers against right-handed batters. So you're going to have Ian Happ likely be a right-handed batter today facing the lefty. But Ian Happ is 9 for 26 this year from the right side of the plate, which is better than he's been in the past historically. So I do think that Ian he's had a little bit of a bad week and a half too. But I think I am expecting Ian Happ to have a decent day at the plate. I don't think it's going to be tough to have an offensive explosion against today, but I think Ian Happ is going to have a solid.
You really want me to spin zone this entire thing? Is maybe it's good that they got out of Chicago and now they're just out west, doing their own. You just
reeled Cody back in.
There's my real a full on spin zone ending the show like that. I
got Hayward.
I am absolutely miserable.
Who do you have?
Hayward?
I got Hayward in the 9-hole.
Jack's super optimistic. He's going Frank the Tank.
Frank the Tank.
No, they gave Frank the Tank some bulletin board material today.
We didn't even talk about it at all. We'll talk about it on the postgame show.
We got. Listen, we want to thank you for joining the CHGO Cubs pregame show. We hope you'll stick around. The strongest-willed Cubs fans will be with us tonight, probably around midnight, maybe later than that. Yeah. We're going to do a full-hour postgame show podcast. Hope you'll join us then. Until then, cross your fingers and enjoy the game.